So picture this. It's March 21st, 2026, a quiet Saturday evening in southern Israel. And then, out of nowhere, bam! Ballistic missiles slam into two different cities. This wasn't just a close call, it was a full-blown mass casualty event, and it immediately sparked some huge questions about a much bigger regional war. So let's break down exactly what went down.
And you can tell how bad it was right from the get-go. The head of Israel's National Emergency Service, that's Magen David Adom, he didn't mince words. He called it an event of enormous magnitude. I mean, when you hear that from the top emergency official, you know the scene on the ground must have been absolutely chaotic for first responders.
And the human cost? Yeah, that became clear really, really fast. We're talking about roughly 100 people wounded across both cities. And look, this wasn't some missile landing in an empty field, okay? This was a direct hit on civilian areas. The numbers were just staggering right from the start.
Now, to really get why this was so shocking, we've got to focus in on one of the cities that got hit, Arad, because its history, its whole reason for existing, makes this attack feel even more brutal.
Okay, so what's wild about Arad is that it wasn't just some random city. It was actually one of Israel's very first planned communities. The whole idea behind it, back in 1962, was to create a peaceful place, a refuge away from all the overcrowding, the noise, the pollution of big city life.
And that peaceful dream, it was just shattered, violently. One of the first medics to get there described the scene as having extensive destruction and chaos. I mean, talk about a brutal contrast, right? The city built for peace suddenly becomes a scene of total wartime chaos.
So let's talk about the human cost here. The impact on the people living there was, as you can imagine, immediate and absolutely devastating. It was so bad, in fact, that it officially kicked off what's called a mass casualty response, pulling in emergency crews from all over the region.
And just in Arad alone, the numbers are just gut-wrenching. We're talking about 68 people injured, 10 of them in serious condition. And the hardest part to hear, children were some of the worst hurt. A 12-year-old boy and a 5-year-old girl, both seriously injured. And it's not just the people. 9 buildings were damaged, and 150 families had to be evacuated, forced out of their homes in an instant.
Arad definitely took the heaviest blow, no question. But the other city, Dimona, was also hit hard. They had around 27 people wounded in a completely separate strike. So 2 cities, 2 attacks, 100 people hurt.
Okay, so as soon as the dust starts to settle, one massive question pops up for everyone, from military leaders to regular people. How? How did this happen? How in the world does a missile get through what's supposed to be one of the best air defense systems on the planet? And this is a really technical question, but the implications are just terrifying. We're not talking about a small homemade rocket here. Reports say the missile that hit Arad was a ballistic missile, carrying a warhead that weighed several hundred kilograms. A weapon that big, it absolutely should have been stopped.
And to their credit, the Israeli Defense Forces didn't try to spin it. They came out pretty quickly and admitted something went wrong. The spokesperson basically said, yep, the air defense systems were on, they were operating, but they didn't intercept the missile. And of course, they said an investigation was starting immediately.
Meanwhile, on the ground itself, things were confusing. You had initial reports saying it was a direct hit from the missile. But then the mayor of Arad came out and said, hold on, it looks more like a huge piece of a failed interception fell here, not the missile's actual warhead. It just goes to show you how chaotic and murky the information is in those first few hours.
Right. So obviously an attack like this doesn't just happen out of the blue. You have to zoom out a bit. This was a massive escalation in a conflict that was already getting wider and more intense by the day. And the fact that Dimona was one of the targets, that is a huge deal. Why? Because Dimona is where Israel's main nuclear research center is located. It's widely believed to be the core of their nuclear program. So even if the missile didn't hit the reactor itself, launching one at that city is a very, very clear message. It's a shot aimed right at Israel's most sensitive spot.
So let's put this on a timeline to make sense of it all. Before this, there was an alleged Israeli or American strike on Iran's nuclear facility at Natanz. Then, on March 21st, you have these missile strikes on Arad and Dimona, which Iran claimed was direct payback. And then just hours later, things got even crazier. U.S. President Trump issued a 48-hour ultimatum to Iran about the Strait of Hormuz. I mean, the whole situation was just exploding.
And Israel's response? It was fast, and it was tough. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu came out and called it a very difficult evening in the campaign for our future. And he made it very clear,
He vowed to keep striking their enemies everywhere, so he was basically signaling that more action was coming. It wasn't a matter of if, but when.
So when all is said and done, these attacks left more than just rubble and wounded people. They left the entire region just teetering on the edge of a much bitter war. You've got Israel vowing to hit back, their military scrambling to figure out what went wrong with their defenses, and major world powers getting pulled into the mess. The big question now isn't just how did this happen? It's what on earth happens next?